I was born unable to feel pain. After my parents died trying to save Alexander, Alexander promised he'd always be there for me. He often took me for medical checkups and specially designed a companion robot for me. Even if I just accidentally graze a little skin, Alexander would shed tears of sadness. But 5 years after we got married, Alexander had someone else by his side. Alexander let her destroy the only picture I had with my parents and helped her plagiarize the script I worked so hard on, even stopped my medical checkups. What's even worse, when she and I were injured at the same time, he left me who fell down the stairs. He just carried her away. In the end, I couldn't feel the pain because the damage to my internal organs became more and more serious. I couldn't be saved and died after I died, and he began to regret it, since being with Alexander for so long. This is the first time he didn't accompany me, letting me come alone to visit my parents' graves. I leaned against the tombstone, talked a lot with Mom and Dad. Then I felt more and more dizzy. Suddenly, I remembered that I'm allergic to lilies. There were lilies in the bouquet I brought today. Since I have congenital anosmia, there is no sensation to the allergy. I staggered to my feet, barely mustering the energy to call Alexander. Luckily, this time Alexander answered the phone, but before I could ask for help, there was a harsh moan on the other end of the line. Alexander was panting heavily, and mixed with a woman's unbearable grunt, I stood in front of my parents' tombstone. The sound coming from the phone receiver was deafening. Suddenly, I felt like a tub of ice water was poured over my head. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. Immediately after that, I lost consciousness. I fell to the ground. Until the security guards at the cemetery changed shifts, they found me unconscious on the monitor. I was only rescued. I was lying on a hospital bed. Cold medicinal water slowly flowed into my body through a syringe. When Alexander hurriedly pushed open the door to my hospital room, the liquid in the bottle had already finished dripping. The needle had even bled back almost half a tube. Alexander walked over quickly to help me remove the needle. He was gasping for breath. Before breathing steadily, he rushed to me and said, "Emily, why did you leave without me? What if you had a seizure and I wasn't there? What would I do if you got sick and I wasn't there?" He held my hand tightly. His eyes were full of concern. But I've seen Alexander truly care and love me. I wasn't going to be fooled by his pretend look. I stand up. With my afterglow, I catch a glimpse of the red mark on his neck that he hasn't had a chance to cover up. It stung my eyes. I avert my gaze. Ask him directly, Alexander. You remember what day it is today? Alexander's eyes flutter. He stammered for half a day. He didn't say a complete sentence. Alexander stood up and tried to hug me, but as soon as he got close, I could smell the strong scent of perfume, and to think he was just in Olivia's bed, and that it's still the anniversary of my parents' death. I felt a wave of nausea. I immediately pushed him away, slapped him hard. He said coldly, "Stay away from me. You're making me feel sick." The people in the beds next to him turned their heads. Those curious stares made Alexander's face grimace. "I came to you in a hurry. What are you angry about? It's just that I didn't get your call. You went out on your own and fell down. You got sick yourself. Don't you know what's wrong with you?" I bit my lips tightly, forced to hold back the tears that were about to well up. At this time, Alexander stood up violently. He slammed the door and left. He hadn't been gone long. Olivia's message came through. It was a recording of her call with Alexander. I expected the same uncomfortable voices. My hands were shaking as I tried to pull the plug on her. Instead, I accidentally hit the play button. Alexander's voice suddenly rang through the hospital room. Emily was having another tantrum. She's never been in good health. She's relied on me to take care of her all these years, and now she has to go out and run around. I haven't finished dealing with you yet. I rushed to see her, and she still gave me an unhappy look. What a disappointment, along with Olivia's soft, reassuring voice. Alexander and her conversation turned back to flirting. I just couldn't listen to it anymore, slamming my phone on the floor as I drifted off to sleep at night. I dreamed again of when Alexander was first with me. Back then, my parents died because of Alexander. Alexander wasn't fully healed. He insisted on leaving the hospital to be with me because I had painlessness. I often accidentally bit my tongue with blood when eating. At that time, Alexander was by my side almost all day and night. The jacket he bought for me accidentally cut my hand while wearing it. Alexander panicked. He held my hand and looked at it again and again, even though I reassured him that it was fine. I couldn't feel any pain. He was still too nervous. Late at night, I was about to fall asleep. I felt Alexander hugging me tightly from behind, his hand gently touching my gauze. Voice a little shaky, he whispered to me, "Emily, it's all my fault. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." He leaned down against my neck. I felt a coolness. And now, I wake up suddenly in the middle of the night, turning my head to see the companion bed next to me. It's empty. No one. After dawn, I went home with the anti-allergy medication prescribed by the doctor. As soon as I pushed open the door, the scene in the house froze me in my tracks. Alexander was sitting on the couch next to the coffee table, staring at the computer. There was a figure vaguely under the coffee table. Alexander's plain black suit pants held a pale, delicate hand. My ears buzzed. How dare he? How dare Alexander? This is the house my parents left me, right where he sat as a child. Mom and Dad used to hold us in their arms and play with us, also in that same spot. Alexander, after my parents died, got down on one knee and made me a promise. It wasn't just guilt he felt for me, but true love, that he would always watch over me. I slammed the door hard. The two men not far away are startled. Alexander scrambles to his feet. The expression on his face hasn't had time to adjust. He quickly walks over to me, blocking my view, said, "Emily was discharged from the hospital today. Why didn't you give me a call when you came back? So I could pick you up." Alexander raised his hand. He gently touched the wound on my cheek when I fainted, asked, "Did you fall on the road? When did you get such a long cut? Hurry up and come in. I'll treat your wound. I think it's ridiculous. Alexander was in the hospital yesterday. I guess all he could think about was what he didn't do with Olivia." I pushed him away. I slapped him again. Alexander was unsteady on his feet. His expression is complicated. Maybe he realized he was wrong too, so chose to hold back. I didn't care about Alexander's reaction. Directly looked at Olivia behind him, opened his mouth and asked. Alexander didn't have time to speak yet. Olivia opened her mouth first and asked, "Who is this? What's going on in my house, Emily?" "Hello, I'm Alexander's new assistant. I'm here to deliver Alexander's documents." "You look familiar. Have we talked before?" Olivia has a hidden agenda, alluding to the provocative messages she sent me earlier. I clench my fists, bite my lip, trying to control myself, not wanting to seem too agitated. The piercing alarm sounded again. The robot had detected blood. Turns out I bit my lip. Alexander then withdrew his gaze from Olivia. He says with a guilty look on his face, "Emily, what happened to you?" I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth. Now that the stuff has been delivered, let her leave my house. After saying that, I bypassed Alexander, who was still trying to help me with the medicine. Went straight up the stairs. I had a nightmare last night. I collapsed on the bed and fell asleep in a daze. I thought after I saw them, they would restrain themselves a little, but I underestimated their bottom line. At noon, Alexander came knocking on my door, calling me downstairs for dinner. He dragged me to the dining room. I end up seeing a table full of spicy dishes. Olivia had already moved her chopsticks first. Olivia saw me coming, smiled, and said to me, "Emily, sis, Alexander and I have been busy working in the morning, and later helped Alexander cook. He let me eat first. I didn't realize that Alexander and I are from the same hometown. We both like spicy flavors, and he's really good at it." Alexander pressed me to the table. He kept pouring food into my bowl. "Emily, it's okay to eat spicy food once in a while. You don't feel it anyway, but my heart is getting heavier and heavier. I found out that Alexander likes spicy food. I ate with him, although I can't taste the spicy flavor. But that doesn't mean the body won't have problems, because I can't stand spicy. I suddenly got acute gastritis. I had a fever of 40 degrees because I had no pain. It was late when I realized the condition. When I went to the hospital, I was almost admitted to the intensive care unit. At that time, Alexander was very scared, panicked, and even went to the temple, kowtowing and worshiping Buddha, praying for my speedy recovery. And now he says, "I can't feel it anyway. I don't want to joke with my life and Alexander." So slammed down my chopsticks and prepared to leave. But Alexander stopped me. "Emily, why are you getting so unreasonable lately? I've been working all day with the others to make this meal. If you don't eat it, you don't eat it. I know. It's because I've resisted so many times. I made Alexander lose face in front of his lover." Alexander grabbed my arm tightly, pulled me back hard. "Emily, you're going to need me to go with you to your checkup tomorrow. It's best to stop now." I tried to move my wrist, but Alexander was too strong. I couldn't get free. I asked him, "So what? Are you threatening me?" I opened my mouth. The voice sounded a little hoarse. Alexander pushed the bowl back in front of me, said, "You can try." I picked up my chopsticks. Quickly bring the rice to my mouth. The flavor of the chili is too strong. Choked my eyes red. Tears almost fell. I shoved the last bite of rice into my mouth, staring up at Alexander, word for word. After I finished eating, I asked Alexander, "Is that okay?" But he ignored me. He continued to discuss with Olivia about some technical terms that I didn't understand. I stood up holding the table, walked upstairs. I grabbed my computer, opened up the copy of the divorce agreement that when Alexander first cheated on me. I had my lawyer prepare the divorce papers. This document has been on my computer for almost a month. I haven't been able to make up my mind. I closed my eyes, closing the page as I returned to my desktop, just thinking about Alexander and me. As a result, I didn't notice that the script document in the corner was gone. I stayed in my room until late afternoon. On my way out the door, I realized that Alexander and Olivia had already left. I wanted to go to the kitchen to get a glass of water. Passing through the living room, suddenly noticed that the photo that was on the cupboard was missing. It was the last picture we took together before my parents passed away. The last picture we took together. I was in a hurry. I didn't even care to pick up the quilt when it fell on the floor. I rummaged around in the cupboard. I searched all over the house. I still couldn't find it. My hands kept shaking. I saw it when I came back in the morning. It's only been a day. There was no one else in the house. Suddenly, there's a bang. My head is suddenly in a whirl. It was just Olivia. It had to be her. It had to be her. Alexander knew what that photo meant to me. The only person who could touch it was Olivia. I called Olivia and Alexander. But there was no answer. And then Alexander sent a message saying, I'm in a meeting. There was thunder outside. It's raining like crazy. The storm was too strong. I rushed to take a taxi to get there. I got stuck at an intersection not far from Alexander Group. The photographs were missing. I was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, clenching my teeth. I got out of the car directly, ran towards Alexander's company. By the time I reached the door, I was soaked to the skin, but I couldn't care less. I just wanted to see Olivia as soon as possible, but I was in a hurry. I forgot the access card Alexander gave me. I ran to the front desk in a panic. I attracted a lot of stares. The receptionist looked at me for a while. Only then did they recognize me. "Madam, what are you doing here? How are you?" he said, while reaching out to help me. I didn't talk to her. I just said I had to go in and find Alexander. I walked to Alexander's office, and the secretary at the door asked me to wait. I was the only one left in the office. I felt a sudden chill. I breezed into Alexander's break room, wiping the water stains off my body with a paper towel. When I opened the closet to find a towel, only to find it somehow stuffed with women's clothes. The picture of us that was on the bed was gone. I didn't want to look any further. I closed the closet door. At that moment, there was a sound from outside the lounge. I walked out, just in time to meet head-on with a group of people. Alexander walked over with a couple of partners. He froze when he saw me. He frowned and asked me, "What are you doing here?" I stared at Olivia behind me. I said in a calm tone, I'm looking for Olivia, said. I walked straight up to him and grabbed Olivia's arm. And pulled her towards the door. Olivia felt the pain. She screamed softly, turned her head and threw a look of help to Alexander. Alexander almost immediately tried to step forward to stop me, but after seeing my cold eyes, he hesitated. "You don't want to be too impulsive. Let's go back first. If you have anything to say, we'll talk about it at home tonight." Alexander came close to my ear, whispering to persuade me. I looked at the partners behind Alexander, let out a light laugh. "Are you sure you want to talk to me about this in front of outsiders? Those people have seen me before. Surely they know who the real Mrs. Alexander is." Alexander had no choice, had to give me a warning look and get out of the way. I pulled Olivia to the stairwell. As soon as I let go, Olivia barely stood still in her heels. I struggled to control my inner turmoil, voice hoarse and cold. "Where are my pictures?" Olivia rubbed her wrist, asking me in a not-so-good tone. "What photos?" I stepped closer to him, already getting a little impatient. "It's the picture I keep in the cupboard, the one of me and my parents. Where did you put it?" "It was there when I went back this morning. It was gone in the evening." Olivia was pushed back by me. She ended up leaning against the railing. Oh, you mean that one. I broke it when I was cleaning for Alexander. Alexander told me to throw it away." "What, is that thing important to you?" Alexander didn't tell me. I was so angry that I was shaking. I could barely stand. I didn't have time to get angry. I just wanted to find the photo. Where did you lose it? Tell me. Where did you lose it? Olivia, where did you lose it? Tell me. Olivia, Olivia, I'm begging you. I clung to Olivia's arm. I feel like I'm losing my last shred of dignity, so I didn't realize the door to the stairwell was open. Alexander walks in. Immediately after, Olivia suddenly pulls me down to the side. I was going to grab the fence, but Olivia yanked my arm tightly. I went black before my eyes. The whole person rolled down the stairs, hitting the wall of the next floor hard. The strong impact made me dizzy. Before I could regain my senses, I heard Alexander's angry roar. Emily, you're hopeless. Alexander jumps down the stairs in a few steps. He picked up Olivia in his arm. Tikes, are you okay? Are you okay? I'll take you to the hospital right away. Olivia wrapped her arms around Alexander's neck and cried out in pain, but she kept her eyes on me. Look at the mess I'm in, she says. Alexander, I'm fine. I'm fine. Emily fell down too. Let's take Emily first. Alexander didn't even look at me. He just said, she pushed you down. What do you care about her? She doesn't care if it hurts me. She's always been a bit of a pain in the ass. How did you become so cruel? I'm struggling to hold myself up. I feel like I could fall at any moment. Alexander, is that really how you see me? She's the one who threw my picture away. Alexander walks away quickly with Olivia in his arms, leaving me alone. It's like losing a broken toy, he says. He says, you're still standing here talking. You don't seem to have any major problems. It's just a photo I can't find. What's all the fuss about? Are you trying to force Olivia? Cancel tomorrow's medical checkup. Wait until Olivia is better. I'll think about other things. I looked at Alexander's faraway back. My chest is stuffy. Couldn't help but bend down, gasping for air. Can't stop the tears from falling down, one after another falling heavily on the ground. Alexander had his driver come over. He drove me home. I had just arrived at the door. My cell phone rang. It was a Twitter alert. I opened it. The screen was filled with red dots of unread messages. Emily, did someone steal your script? Emily, look at this. Someone on Twitter posted a picture of the script with your watermark on it. The script. What script? I'm dizzy. My body seems to be out of control. My movements are getting slower and slower. I didn't have time to read it carefully. Olivia sent another message, this time with a picture attached. It was an image of Alexander nervously helping her with her wound. I thought you asked where your picture was. I threw it in the garbage truck in front of the neighborhood. You should go there now. It might not be too late. I turned off my cell phone. I turned around and ran out of the neighborhood. Luckily, it's raining hard tonight. The garbage truck hasn't left yet. It's still parked in the same spot. I shakily climbed on, rummaging through the piles of black garbage bags. Not this one. Where the hell did this go? Not in this place. Where the hell did I leave it? The rain got heavier and heavier. I was getting more and more anxious. The rain blurred my vision. My hands were covered with all kinds of stains. Just when I was about to lose my grip, I found the rain-soaked photo in the corner. I hurriedly stood up, wanted to run over, but accidentally stepped on something, slipped and fell. He suddenly fell off the garbage truck. His arm hit a discarded iron frame hard. Blood immediately flowed out. He stood up, climbed back into the car, reaching for the photo in the photo. Mom and Dad had something on their faces. Couldn't wipe it off, finally. I wiped repeatedly. My hands were covered with thick blood. Breathing became more and more difficult. Soon I passed out. In less than 2 days, I was hospitalized again. This time I wasn't so lucky. I bled a lot in the rain and in the garbage, lying down for a long time. It wasn't until the rain stopped in the second half of the night. Only then did a passerby find me. I was taken to the hospital, with a ventilator on my face. The doctor's voice was in my ears, coming and going. The doctor called Alexander, asking, "Are you Emily's family? The patient has a broken rib. It's in her lung." The doctor hasn't finished speaking. Alexander's cold voice came out of the phone. It echoed in the hospital room. "Olivia told me everything. She borrowed your script to promote the company. It wasn't an intention to leave your name out. You should hurry up and go on Twitter to clarify it with your fans. You can't blame Olivia for this. Did you hear that? Hey, Emily. Emily, can you stop being so mean? I've been taking care of you. You don't have to do anything at home. You've been a fixture in the house. What's not to like? I've been too good to you. It's not like you're anything special. You don't have to go to your physical after that. Wait until you apologize to Olivia sometime." At this moment, the puzzle pieces in my head finally match up with what I read earlier. Alexander. Have you favored her to the point where you don't care about right and wrong? I felt the picture with my mom and dad in my pocket, feeling my body getting lighter and lighter, until the monitoring device in my ear suddenly let out a shrill alarm crap. The patient is in cardiac arrest. The patient's heart stopped. Alexander stopped abruptly on the other end of the line. Alexander suddenly stopped on the other end of the phone and said urgently, "We've got to get him out of there, Emily. What are you doing, Emily? Why don't you say something? What's wrong, Emily?" Emily, when I opened my eyes, I was floating in the air. There were doctors standing around my bed. They were trying to save my body. It took a while. The lead doctor stopped CPR. He sighed heavily, said, 2:12 a.m. on the day of the month. The patient's resuscitation was ineffective, has passed away. I watched as the nurse removed the monitoring equipment from me one by one, reached out and touched my chest, felt much more relaxed. It seems, this thing about me having congenital painlessness, it wasn't all bad, at least. I was hurt so badly, but I didn't feel that kind of heart-rending pain at all. I walked in peace. A lot of people like me get sick. They die at a young age. I'm lucky to have survived this long. I'm lucky. My body is getting cold. The doctor covered me with a white cloth. The ICU ward was quiet all of a sudden. At this time, it was only then that everyone noticed. From the time I received that call just now, the cell phone I dropped on the floor has been ringing nonstop. The doctor bent down and picked up the cell phone. The word Alexander was displayed on the screen. After the call was connected, what came through was no longer the impatient and angry voice from before. Alexander's voice was filled with anxiety and fear. "Emily, where are you? Tell me where you are. I was wrong this time. Don't make fun of me. Where are you now? Just tell me. I'll pick you up and take you home." "Okay, I'll leave him alone. Are you Emily's family? This is the emergency room at Central City Hospital. I'm sorry to inform you that the patient's life has been compromised. The patient's life has been compromised. She has passed away." And then, the sound of a chair falling to the ground came from across the room. Olivia exclaimed, "Alexander, Alexander, what happened to you? Alexander, where are you going?" Sharp footsteps came from the end of the hallway. I looked up. It was Alexander. It turns out, Alexander and I are only one floor apart. Alexander stumbled forward. Alexander stumbled forward and grabbed the doctor's hand. "I'm Emily's husband. Is Emily safe now? She's just mad at me. I shouldn't have gotten mad at her. You helped me tell her to stop messing with me. I know it's wrong. Let her out, okay?" Alexander said. Reaching into the lining of his suit, he took out our marriage license. He took out our marriage license. I looked at the red book in his hand. Suddenly, I was in a trance. The day we got our license, Alexander was especially happy. He invited everyone from the Civil Affairs Bureau to dinner. He also prepared red envelopes. He gave them to everyone who passed by. He hugged me and cheered. It was like winning a battle. Said he'd carry the marriage license with him for the rest of his life. Turns out, he still remembers this promise. Then why did he carry our marriage license with him? To be with someone else. The doctor didn't say anything more, just patted Alexander gently. I handed him my cell phone. And told him that my last known information was in it. Alexander turned his head. It was as if he had lost his soul. His movements became slow and stiff. Time seemed to drag on for an eternity. Alexander slowly moved over to the hospital bed. His hands trembled as he lifted the cloth from my face. When he confirmed that I had really passed away, he sat down on the floor. His face was pale. He shook my body. His mouth kept chanting, hoping that I would wake up. The next second, his hand touched the deep, long cut on my arm. "Emily, where did you get this? Where did you get this? How did you get such a long cut? You're hurt. Does it hurt?" I didn't realize. He examined my shirt and pants. "Are there any injuries elsewhere?" "Honey, it's all my fault. I'll take you right back to treat your wounds." "Okay." Alexander saw the large bruises on my back and abdomen. He froze. I floated in the air. Looking at myself in this miserable state also feel unbearable to look at. If this time, Alexander's chaperone robot that he made for me would be next to me. That ear-piercing alarm would have brought the roof down. Alexander looked at my bruised and battered body. A groan of pain escaped his throat. A pale face. Glum. Just then, Olivia's message came back. What a coincidence. Alexander heard my cell phone ring. He opened the lock screen, saw the familiar name. I rushed over too, wanted to see what it was about. Olivia says to Emily, "Emily, did you pull another stunt to get Alexander to come to you?" Then, Olivia says, "Don't get too excited. All I have to do is make a phone call. Alexander will come back to see me. Olivia says coldly, "You haven't heard enough about me and Alexander. If you keep pestering Alexander, next time I'll lose more than just your picture." Alexander suddenly winced. His mind went blank for a second. I looked at him like this. Couldn't help but smile. Probably before this, Alexander thought he was hiding it well, but he didn't know. After they had sex for the first time, Olivia's demonstration call came to my cell phone. During this recent time, I've received all sorts of provocations. There are photos, voices, and videos. Alexander's fingers slid up the messages a little stiffly. The more he reads, the more uneasy he feels inside. Now I realized what all this time of my erratic behavior was for. Alexander pulled up the white cloth. The hand gently strokes over my face, full of reluctance, and then he carefully puts the white cloth over my body. He held onto the edge of the bed. It took several tries before he could barely stand up. Alexander looked particularly strained with every step, as if he had used all his strength. I followed not far behind him. I watched him walk slowly down the stairs, back to the door of Olivia's hospital room. Just as he was about to open the door, his cell phone suddenly rang. Alexander answered it. Olivia's delicate voice immediately came over. "Alexander, where have you been? Where have you been? My wound hurts like hell. Can you come back and help me see if it's inflamed?" Alexander's voice was low. Alexander's voice was low and hoarse. "Really?" Olivia whispers. "Alexander, I'm in real pain. Can you come back?" Alexander ignored Olivia's complaints. He pushed open the door to the hospital room. Olivia was startled. She froze in place. "Alexander, how did you get back so fast?" Alexander walks up to Olivia, holds her wrist. Concerned, "Alexander, I thought you said it hurt. Where does it hurt? I'll take a look at it for you." Olivia pauses for a moment, hurrying to show Alexander the scrape on her knee, and puts her whole leg on him. Alexander's hand slides down Olivia's thigh, finally stops at the wound. Immediately afterward, the sound of Olivia's real scream came from the hospital room. "Alexander, Alexander, what are you doing?" Alexander pushes Olivia away, then he slaps him across the face. "Who are you calling a bitch? Don't you dare say that again. Didn't I warn you? Don't let my wife know. How dare you bring this to her attention? You're just a lowlife. You don't even know who you are." Alexander hit it with all his might, the full force of a grown man striking down. One side of Olivia's face immediately turned blue, but he wasn't satisfied, grabbing the hair at the back of Olivia's head, forcing her head up, followed by another slap. "Are you enjoying the sound of people hearing you guys? You want me to upload those videos online? Let everyone take a look. It's all your fault. If it wasn't for you, how could Emily get upset with me?" Olivia felt dizzy. She kept begging Alexander for mercy. "Alexander, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Did Emily say something bad about me in front of you? You know, I've always listened to you. I always listen to you the most." Alexander pulls Olivia off the bed, kicks her in the back. There was too much noise in the hospital room, alarming the nurses and security at the desk. 4 or 5 rushed into the hospital room. Together, they controlled Alexander, who was in a rage. The nurse seized the opportunity, rushed to save Olivia. Alexander struck hard. 2 of Olivia's ribs were broken. Alexander also forced Olivia to write a letter of understanding. After Alexander calmed down, brought back my remains from the hospital, I was suspended in the air, watching him carefully wipe away the blood from my body with a clean towel as he changed my clothes. Unintentionally touched the group photo in my pocket. The photo was so dirty it was no longer there. Alexander looked at it. Suddenly, without warning, he burst into tears. He knelt on the ground. He grabbed his hair tightly with both hands, pulling with all his might, as if he had reached the edge of collapse. I'm sorry, he mumbled. I looked at him coldly, thinking to myself, how could I forget my promise to you? How could I let go of treating you like that? That picture of me and my parents was taken by Alexander for us. He even accompanied me to print and frame it. He wiped it down with me every day. He swore to me several times in front of this picture. He had promised to protect me for the rest of my life, make sure I was safe and sound. But after my parents died trying to save him, he indirectly caused my death. Alexander searched the house for me all day and night. He found the old camera's memory card in the far end of the closet. He printed out a few more photos, cremated them with my remains, and buried me next to my parents' grave. That day, Alexander knelt in front of the grave from morning to evening, never left. Before he stood up, he kept touching my picture on the tombstone. He whispered, wait for me, Emily, I'll be right with you." I woke up with a start. I woke up to see Alexander speeding away in his car. He drove all the way to Central City Hospital, straight into Olivia's hospital room. Alexander forced Olivia out of the hospital, took her to the same stairwell where Olivia and I fought earlier, to make her feel the pain that I had felt. I ignored her pleas for mercy on her knees, pushed her straight down the stairs. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and then learned of my death. The two had a complete falling out. Olivia lay on the floor, shivering in pain, but she couldn't help but curse. Alexander, what kind of good guy are you pretending to be? Emily's death is not your fault if you are really devoted to Emily. If you had been faithful to Emily, I would have never gotten involved. You were always looking for reasons to blame her, weren't you? Even without me. It's only a matter of time before Emily gets hurt by you. Alexander rubbed his face, throws the cigarette on the ground, put it out with his foot. His eyes glow red, steps on Olivia's finger and says, I understand. That's why we both deserve to die. We both deserve to die. Olivia stares at Alexander's twisted face. A chill runs through her. She opens her mouth to scream for help. She realizes she can't make a sound. Alexander lit another cigarette, took out his cell phone and operated it for a while, then called an ambulance for Olivia. He said, Don't worry, it's not time yet, you remember to get well. I was standing behind Alexander. I clearly saw what he just did. He took his cell phone, sent me Olivia's provocative messages about his and Olivia's unseemly affairs, and the evidence that Olivia copied my script. Sent it all out, except for his handwritten confession. There's other information that's been publicized along with it. The Alexander Group is one of the best in the city. The president of Alexander Group himself exposed news about his private life. This caused a huge reaction on the internet. All kinds of accusations and criticisms came like a tidal wave. It caused Alexander Group's stock price to fall rapidly. Alexander locked himself in his house. There was an additional scar on his arm similar to mine. I rummaged through the surveillance footage of the garbage truck. Alexander forced himself to watch those over and over again. His face was bearded. He looked particularly depressed. During this time, he tried all kinds of methods. He got himself all bruised up, but he's more uncomfortable than me, because his sense of pain is normal. The wound on Alexander's arm is inflamed and pus-filled. The blood flowed. It hurt so much that he almost fainted. He has nightmares every night, waking up screaming my name. During this time, Olivia sent me a total of 113 provocative texts. Alexander made 113 wounds on himself, said it was to atone for his sins to me, but he's like this. It's nothing more than self-touching. He also messed up my house with my parents. If his feelings for me were really that deep, how could I have died? Now my soul is still tied tightly to him. When the police broke down the door, Alexander almost died from blood loss. It was Olivia who called the police. Alexander threatened her that day, plus the recent attacks and insults online. It's keeping her at the hospital. The way everyone looked at her made her feel bad. Olivia was tortured to the point of breaking down. What's even harder for her to bear? Alexander said he would take her with him to atone for her sins. When Olivia dreamt of Alexander's horrible face again, she finally decided to call the police. In the hallway of the company building, what he did to Olivia, all recorded by the surveillance cameras. The police came to Alexander to assist in the investigation, but saw him looking sickly, had to let him go for treatment first. Alexander woke up in the hospital, quietly avoided the caretakers at the door. He dragged his weak body, came to my mom and dad's grave. People at the hospital realized Alexander was missing, tracked him all the way through the surveillance, eventually found him. Alexander's body was out cold. Olivia's sighed. I heard it seems like she was scared to death. She's having mental problems. I watched Alexander's life fade away. I have mixed feelings in my heart. I can't tell what I felt. I'm finally relieved. I felt my soul becoming lighter and lighter. It slowly drifted away. If there is a next life, I don't want to be bound by such unreal feelings anymore.